Hello everyone, welcome to another Narc Survivor live video. In this one we're going to be talking about something that all narcissists do at the end of a relationship. Please give the video a thumbs up down below. Hit that subscribe button and click all notifications so that you will be notified when I go live in the future. And for one-on-ones, just go to my website to book. It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. So yeah, this is something that all narcissists do at the end of a relationship. Initially, they love bomb you, maybe they play the victim, and you believe that what you're seeing is genuine, that you're dealing with someone who is genuinely in a difficult place, and maybe they're blaming their previous supply or their family, they're blaming someone, and you just genuinely believe that what they're saying is true. So then you give them a chance, and then you're helping them, you're assisting them. And then before you know it, they start devaluing you. They turn against you. And they do all of these things to you. They lie to you. Maybe they steal from you. They betray you. And then at the end of the relationship, something that all narcissists do is they blame you for everything that went wrong in the relationship, for all of the things that they did to you. They blame you for that. They hold you accountable. They expect you to fix it, even though they were the cause of it. They did all of these things to you. They put you in a bad position. They deliberately went out of their way to harm you and cause problems for you. And don't be fooled, they are consciously aware of it. Yes, they act like they're in denial. Well, rather, they are in denial, and as though they don't fully understand where you're coming from, your perspective, or they just don't even want to hear it. And then they just make it out as though you've done something to them, or you caused most of the problems in the relationship. And then they end up turning against you. Then they start playing the victim again, just as they were playing the victim at the beginning of the relationship, while they were love bombing you. Which is kind of interesting when you think about it, because they were already playing the victim initially, and then when it goes to the end of the relationship, now they're playing the victim again. Only this time, instead of you trying to be there for them, and you're trying to support them and assist them, now you're no longer wanting to do that because you've seen beneath the mask, and maybe you're seeing what their previous source saw before. And then that's why they ended up playing the victim with you. And now they're just playing the victim again and blaming you, trying to get you to do more for them, trying to get you to overextend yourself, trying to get you to help them, when they do not deserve your help. They do not deserve your support. These types of people, they are parasites, they are leeches. They lack the internal strength. they felt inadequate. They felt like they weren't good enough in their childhood. So then they abandoned their true self and they created a false self. And now because they lack that internal power and strength from within, what they have to do is manipulate people to lure them in, where they wear a mask and they act like there's something that you would want in your life, something that can help you. They mirror you and you're not suspicious about it because you're being genuine. So then you see that in them and they reflect it back to you about themselves. And then before you know it, they start devaluing you, they turn against you. And then you're left very confused. You're just left wondering, what went wrong? Is it you or is it them? They start gaslighting you. And nothing seems to make any sense. It's like the more you talk to them, the more you just begin to doubt your own reality, your own memories and perceptions. Because you remember all of the things that they did to you. You remember how they were treating you. And yet somehow now they're turned against you. They're blaming you. They're playing the victim. And if that's not bad enough, some of them even go off and start a smear campaign. And they get everyone else to fall for this narrative about you. Even after all of the things they've done to you. And many of you, you could be dealing with so many health issues, financial problems. You could have all of this stuff going on in your life as a result of being involved with this person. And yet somehow all of these people just blindly follow the narcissist narrative. And if anything, the narcissist is now better off than they were before they met you. And now you're far worse off. And despite that, all of the narcissist flying monkeys just seem to go along with it. And then you're just being further victimized, further abused, further gaslighted. And they leave you isolated. They leave you in a very difficult position. But now maybe you've got these health issues. You've got all of this anxiety, stress, depression, financial problems that they left you in. And then on top of that, with the smear campaign and the isolation, then suddenly you see the narcissist, maybe they're bragging and boasting about their new life or their new source. They're flaunting this new source on social media. And it just makes you feel so low. Of course it does. After you took this person in, you gave them a chance. You gave them everything you had. And it's like they just tricked you. And then they devalued you to make you feel like you're not as good as you actually are. Or as though everything you did for them wasn't really anything. They abused you all of that time, and then when you had nothing more to give, or once you started to develop health issues, anxiety, or you started to confront them, then they were done with you. They discarded you. And then they just go off and find someone else. And then they just leave their flying monkeys to deal with you. So that you can't get back on your feet. So that you can't expose them. So that you can't make them feel any regret as though what they did was wrong. Because that's just it. They just want to infiltrate people's lives and do all of these things to them. And then just get away with it scot-free. And then just go off somewhere else and do the exact same thing all over again. That's all they're trying to do. That's exactly what they're doing with you. And they do this to people all the time. And they Many of you may not realize it, but you're likely not the first person that they've done this to. They've likely done this to so many people before you. And this is how they get by. This is how they survive. This is how they get in with people who they have no business dealing with, who they shouldn't even be around, people who they are not even deserving of. This is how they gain access into our lives. And it's also how they then just use and exploit us, get everything they want from us, without reciprocating anything back. And then they set up the situation in a way where you can't blame them, you can't abandon them, you can't expose them, or they can do all of these things to you. And then you're left isolated with no means of moving on, so that they don't have to feel any regret. They don't have to feel bad for all of the things they did to you. And then instead they can just run off with a new source. It's really crazy when you think about it, but this is exactly what these people do. And I see we got 193 live viewers. If you're finding this video helpful so far, please give me a thumbs up down below. I appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, this is what these crazy people do. This is what they do to people. And it's crazy to believe that people like this actually exist out in the world today. People who are liars. People who are so fake that they can just come into people's lives and do these things and take no accountability for it. Because think about it, what should actually happen? How it should really end. I mean, if someone's come into your life, they've groomed you, they've manipulated you, they've deceived you, they've robbed you of everything, they've cheated you, they've betrayed you, you gave everything, you got nothing back, and in the end they blamed you. And then they start a smear campaign against you, run off with a news source, and then they use that for further abuse against you as well. But they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't have any opportunity to gather all these flying monkeys against you, to isolate you, to ruin your reputation. After everything they've done to you, their reputation should be ruined. Their image should be destroyed. Because they are abusers. They ruined your future, your life. And they shouldn't be running off with this new source, starting a new relationship, or getting married and having a family. If anything, they should be in jail. They should be facing the consequences for their actions. And of course, should we think that deep down they don't know that? Of course they do. Of course they know that they shouldn't be going off with this new source, acting like they're living their best lives after everything they've done to you. And they shouldn't be gathering all of these flying monkeys, smearing your name. Of course they know they shouldn't be doing that after everything they've done to you. And that's how they actually feel a lot of shame. Deep down, they feel like they're a bad person. They don't feel sorry for what they've done. They don't really care about how it affects you, other than how it pertains to them, what it says about them as a person, because they want to be seen as good people. But yeah, they go off and they feel very paranoid about what they've done. They're very worried about when it might catch up to them. And that's why many of them will stay on you. They'll keep coming after you to keep you down, to keep you miserable, to keep you stuck, so that you don't ever get the means to have power over them, to enforce the law against them, or to get other people involved to support you against them, to expose them, and then to completely abandon them to where they never have an open door ever again to come back in. They don't ever want that to happen because, of course, deep down they know what horrible people they are. They know that they're really bad as a result of what they've done to you and how they lied about it all. They cheated you, they betrayed you. And that's how they're so paranoid about it. And they won't ever let you challenge them. It's like they don't ever even want to talk about it. Even if they come back and they hoover you, they just come back like nothing happened. They don't want to have a conversation about it. They don't want to talk about all of the things that they've done to you. If anything, the only thing they will talk about is the reactive abuse. So maybe they pushed and provoked you to the point where you couldn't take it anymore, and then you acted out against them. Yeah, that's what they will want to talk about, because then it validates their false narrative. It makes them feel better about themselves. It makes them feel like they actually were the victim in that situation, when deep down they know that they weren't. But if they can get people to believe it, it makes it that much more believable for them. But even then, it's still not enough. What they really want is to convince you. They want to convince you that you were the problem. They want to scapegoat you. Because if they convince you of that you're to blame, that something's wrong with you, and that you did something wrong to them and they're actually the victim, then they can continue to punish you. And then it supports this narrative that nothing is wrong with them. They haven't done anything wrong, even after all of the things that they have done to you. So that is their ideal scenario. That's exactly how they want it to end. That's how they want things to be. And this is how they're so fragile and insecure about it. Well, you have to believe exactly what they want you to believe. You can't have any opinions or ideas of your own. You're not allowed to have that around a narcissist. You have to believe exactly what they want you to believe about yourself or the people in the world around you. They've got to gaslight you. They've got to get you to submit to their false narrative, because that's the only way they can feel better about themselves. That's the only way they can feel like nothing is wrong with them. But even then, the shame still continues to grow within them, because what they resist will persist. It will continue to haunt them. And they will always be there. They will never be able to get it completely off their minds. They will never be able to get away from that, because of course, the truth, the reality is that they are a manipulator. They're a groomer, a brainwasher, a deceiver, a con artist, a liar, an abuser. They're all of these things. And deep down they know that. So they can't just run away from it. They do not have a clear conscience. They know that what they've done to you was wrong. Of course they know that. And that's why they're so controlling over you and your perceptions of them. Because they're very insecure about it. Otherwise, they wouldn't really care. They wouldn't be so bothered about it. They would just let you go. Or maybe they might punish you if they really feel like they were wronged, but then they would still just let it go. They wouldn't stay on you. They wouldn't start a smear campaign. They wouldn't have to flaunt the new source in your face. They wouldn't have to do any of that. But they do it all because they're very insecure about themselves. Deep down, they know that they're not good. They know that they're a bad person. But they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to be aware of it. Many of you, you are aware of that, and you may wonder if they want you to be aware of it or not, because they often use it to hurt you. But actually, no, they'd rather if you didn't know. They will use it to hurt you if they see an opportunity to do that. But what they prefer is that you don't know about it. They'd rather you just see them as a good person who never did anything wrong, who never intended to do anything wrong to you. That's how they would rather that you would see them. But many of you, you have this conscious awareness. You know what you were dealing with. Or you may just have this cognitive dissonance. And if they do not want you to have that, that's how they have to work overtime to manipulate your perception, to make you doubt your own memories, and sometimes even your own sanity. They have to try and drive you crazy, because otherwise you're in alignment with the truth and reality of the situation. And that tells you everything you need to know. Because here's the thing. If the truth was what they're saying the truth is, if that was the reality of it, then they wouldn't want you to align with reality. They wouldn't have to manipulate you. They wouldn't have to brainwash you, gaslight you. They wouldn't have to abuse you and to break you down. They wouldn't have to do any of that. But they do all of those things because what they're talking about and the false narrative that they're running, it has nothing to do with reality. It's all make-believe, it's all fake. And even for those narcissists who lack self-awareness, even then it's just all their emotions. And whatever they feel in their minds, that's the truth. They see their feelings as facts. So if they feel hurt, then in their minds, that means that you must have hurt them. But all narcissists, self-aware or not, they all just really want to remain in denial. That's what they really want. They don't ever want to be awake or aware. And that's how most narcissists, they aren't self-aware. And it's because they don't want to be self-aware. They don't want to be aware of the truth because the truth is against them. They'd rather just play pretend. They'd rather just be in this make-believe world for the rest of their lives. They don't ever want to wake up. And that's how whenever you bring the truth to them, what happens? They get mad. It causes a narcissistic injury. It's just such an irrational response. And all you may be doing is just talking about the facts, the things that actually happened, the things that you experienced, the things that you had to go through. But they don't want to hear it. They don't want to know anything about that because they don't want anything to do with reality. They live in a false reality. And they want to pull you into that because it makes them feel so much better about themselves. What doesn't make them feel good is when people are connected to reality and they're aware of the truth. Because then that looks bad on them. And it makes them feel like they're a bad person. Which, as we know, no narcissist wants to feel that way. So that's why they cover it up. That's why they blame you. If you're finding this video helpful so far, give it a thumbs up down below. I appreciate the support. But let me know your story. Let me know what you had to go through with a narcissist. What did they blame you for? Or what did they do to you? And despite that, still turn around and just blame you for things. Or let me know if you have any questions as well, and I'll read them out and respond to them. Kieran Hudson says, I'm through being the emotional punching bag. Yes, that's all they're really looking for. Someone to be the emotional punching bag. Because they have an inability to regulate their own emotions, because they're disconnected from truth. So they're disconnected from themselves. And of course, we have to be connected to ourselves to be able to regulate, to self-regulate. Ace Clean says, I called CPS on mine. Had to. She was letting her narcissistic husband put hands on my daughter. Yes, we should definitely do anything we can to protect our children. Because these types of people, they look at you and they really believe that they're entitled to you. They have a right to anything that belongs to you, such as your possessions or even your own family members and friends. They will start to see it as though those people should be with them, and they will befriend them to try and turn them against you and to isolate you. So when they come near your family, yes, you need to be very careful. Because that sense of entitlement to where they just view people as their possessions, they will treat your own family members in a way where you wouldn't even treat them that way. You wouldn't even talk to them that way, and you know them. And you've been around them for a long time. And it's because of that entitlement. Because in their minds, they know everything that they need to know about anyone and anything. So they're just the judge, jury, and the executioner in their minds. Jeffrey Quinones says, if you thought narcissists are bad, you should see what sociopaths do. I understand that, yes, sociopaths can be very abusive. And there is a difference between a sociopath and a narcissist. But I don't want to minimize anyone's experience with a narcissist. I mean, narcissists can murder people. They ruin people's lives. So definitely we should never minimize the effects of a narcissist. People have been through a lot already. And especially after dealing with a narcissist gaslighting, you really need to be validated. What you went through needs to be understood, and it needs to be reflected back to you, because that's real. That's what happened. You were manipulated, you were abused by a narcissist. Lorraine Dan says they are like them plants you see in home stores. All shiny, healthy leaves. When you go over to touch them, you realize they are fake. Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. They are fake people. And that's why they go above and beyond to take you away from yourself. They discredit you. They try and get you to change everything about yourself, to pull your personality inside out. And they compare you to other people. They say other people do this, or they do something better, to try and mold you into something else. And they really don't care what they mold you into, as long as it's anything other than yourself. Because they're very jealous of your authenticity. It's something they don't have because they sold their souls. They abandoned their true selves. And of course, they've done all of these bad things. They've ruined people's lives and they just can't even accept that about themselves. So they can never be real. Jeffrey Quinones says, I know sociopaths that totally destroy narcs. I mean, yes, that's true. Of course, there's sociopaths and psychopaths out there that will make narcissists run for their lives. There's no doubt about that. There's plenty of sociopaths and psychopaths in the world who have murdered people, raped them. They've done horrific things. Some of them are serial killers, cannibals. And that's a big part of it as well, is that many of these narcissists, you look at how they bully and intimidate you. All of this is just things that they've learned from other people. So when you see them yelling and screaming at you, and they're really getting close to you and trying to intimidate you, when you see them doing these things, it's just learned from what was done to them. And in fact, what was done to them could have been a lot worse. Adriel Angel says, disconnected from truth. Ain't that the truth? Oh, it is the truth. And you'll know that it's the truth because how do you feel afterwards? Once you've been around a narcissist, what does it do? It erases your identity. By the end of it, you don't even know who you are. You stop engaging in all of your passions that you used to before. You become a completely different person, and then they blame you for that as well. They tell you that you've changed. Amanda Siri asks, is it true that most narcissists have anger issues? I would say yes, without a doubt. If not all narcissists have anger issues. They are all highly emotional, highly sensitive to criticism, and they will lash out. But sometimes, if it happens in public, then they may hold on to it until they get home and take it out on their nearest and dearest. Because of course they don't want to spoil their false image. But yes, I would say all narcissists will have anger issues. That's really a hallmark trait of a narcissist. But then also keep in mind that victims of narcissistic abuse will have anger issues as well. Because once you've been treated that way for such a long time, all of that injustice, of course you're going to be angry. Of course you're going to be reactive. And then that's often what they will use to paint you as crazy or to paint you as abusive. Jeffrey Quinonez says, I know a sociopath who abandoned his family and robbed his wife's family business for thousands of dollars. Yes, when it comes to large amounts of money, not always, but a lot of the times when we're talking about people who are seeking money and power and they're very corrupt, and it's like a Machiavellianism that does tend to be more sociopathy and psychopathy, to where they're even willing to break laws, they're willing to steal. Happy says, I discovered narcissists are very miserable. The more I stood up for myself and build my self-esteem, the less I get attached or attacked to these freaks. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Misery loves company. So what happens is they want to take your self-esteem down, and then they feel more comfortable around you, and they can shame you so that then they don't have to reflect on their own shame. And of course, that really helps for us when we come to these communities. We begin to realize what these people are really like. And that can help to validate us and rebuild our self-esteem that they targeted. Because really, it's not you. People who go out of their way to do this, who target your self-esteem, it's because they're not happy with themselves. It's not because there's something wrong with you. If it was something like that, then why couldn't they go about it in a more mature and responsible way? Why couldn't they be more optimistic about it? They could speak about it in a more positive way, rather than being so negative and pessimistic. Now, they are that way because they are miserable. They're not satisfied with themselves. They know that they're not good enough for you. And that's what the problem is. But they won't ever tell you that. Because you can do a lot for them. You can't make them happy over a long period of time. No one can. but you can still do things for them, and that's why they targeted you. But they cannot do the same thing for you. They haven't got the power, they haven't got the means, they haven't got the mental and emotional faculties to reciprocate anything back to you. Miss Catherine Love says, narcissists can drive you to suicide or cause severe pain. I got a brain tumor from being married to one. Never had tumors in my family history. I said I have done a video on how narcissistic abuse can cause physical brain damage, even if they never even touch you. That's how damaging it is. And of course, it's because they've already got brain damage. So just being around one, it can affect you as well. But then the key part of it is it doesn't just mean that anyone who's traumatized, anyone who has any form of brain damage, even as the result of abuse, that they can cause harm to you, that they can damage you. It's not just that, it's more that they don't accept that about themselves. That's what the damaging thing is. And once you become aware of this, then you can see it, of how it's the way that it confuses you. It just baffles your mind when you know that there's something wrong with them, but they're acting like nothing is wrong. So they don't accept that about themselves. And that's a big part of it. But when you're around people who maybe they do have some kind of condition, maybe they do even have a mental illness themselves, but they're aware of it and they accept it, now things can progress, things can move forward. Just like some of these self-aware narcissists on YouTube. It almost doesn't seem harmful to watch their videos. It's very different than being involved with just a regular narcissist who isn't self-aware and who isn't trying to grow. Lego Man asks, do they cause brain damage? Yes, they do cause physical brain damage, and this has been scientifically proven. And specifically what happens is it shrinks the hippocampus of the brain and it swells the amygdala. And these parts of the brain are to do with focus, memory, learning, and of course, even a sense of identity. So it can affect so much about you. And this is just how damaging they are. But of course, as I mentioned before, it's very different when someone is doing this to you compared with someone who is doing these things to someone. If it's been done to you, you can heal. You can unlearn what you've learned from them. And it's not the same for them because they do these things and then they just go off and forget about it. They act like they've done nothing wrong. There's no acceptance. And that's how they can't progress, because they're in denial. that George said, lots of sociopaths and narcs. In fact, every sociopath and psychopath is a narcissist. But not all narcissists are sociopaths or psychopaths. Sociopaths and psychopaths, they are further on the spectrum of narcissism. And it's antisocial personality disorder. I haven't done too much research on sociopaths and psychopaths at this point. I am still researching it. I've been watching a lot of interrogations and I've learned so much already. But there's still so much more to know. But you know, I wonder sometimes, because many of us, and I don't want to invalidate anyone's experience, but I was just thinking about this. Many of us, and I'm talking mainly from my own experience, but maybe you can relate to this as well. We feel like we've had it really bad with the abuse that we've gone through. And yes, of course, while that may be the case, just imagine if we didn't have the internet, we didn't have these communities where people can validate our experiences, and instead the narcissist was our only source of influence, or we're isolated, or we're going through a smear campaign. Just imagine how this was for people decades ago, before the internet existed. They must have been driven insane. They must have lost their minds. And maybe they were driven to suicide. But because of these communities, and of course, whereas people from all walks of life, from different parts of the world, and we can all relate to each other, even though we've never met the same person, as different people might be dealing with, and yet we all get it. And it's so validating, it helps with the gaslighting. So we're very fortunate to have this community and to have each other. And honestly, I think that having all of you, having all of your support, that's really helped me more than anything else. I wonder sometimes, where would I be if I didn't have all of you? Because of course, even though I have all of this information, and I've done all of this research, I've learned so many things, it also helps to get your validation as well, when you confirm to me that it's what you've experienced. Because of course, if I was making these videos and no one could relate, then I just feel like I'm on my own and I wouldn't really understand what I'm dealing with. But then of course, there are other YouTubers as well. But just all of these communities, I'm so thankful for them. And honestly, I don't know where we would be without them, because when you have all of these people gaslighting you and making you feel like you're crazy, of course, it can be very difficult to validate yourself, no matter how strong you may be. And of course, that's why it's so important that we all stick together. Unfortunately, because of these communities, we are never alone in this. But I feel so bad for the victims who decades ago may have gone through this alone without any support. I mean, just like that movie, I think it's from the 1920s, Gaslight. That woman was driven insane by that narcissist who was playing with the lights but telling her that he wasn't. Because he was her only source of influence. She had no external validation. She didn't have a supportive community. So many of us now, because of all of this online support, what we're dealing with the gaslighting, and again, I don't want to minimize anyone's experience, but the gaslighting that we experience now is actually quite mild because we've got all of this online support. And of course, we're very fortunate to have this. But yeah, just imagine what it would be like without it. Miss Cashwell Love says, I was married for 13 years, together for 15, and gave him everything. I know what that's like, to give everything to someone who didn't appreciate it, didn't reciprocate it. The worst thing about it for me is thinking that someone else could have been happy with a fraction of what I gave to the narcissist in my life. And of course, a non-narcissistic person, they would have been grateful. They would have said, thank you. Nikki asks, can you repair the damage done to your brain? I have done some videos on the brain and how narcissistic abuse affects it. And yes, you can heal the damage that it does to your brain. And as I mentioned earlier, it shrinks the hippocampus and it swells the amygdala. And these are more to do with learning, memory, and focus. So what helps is to engage in activities which will restore your ability to focus, learn, and remember things. So activities such as reading books, and also maybe doing puzzles, mathematics, even just playing brain puzzle games on your phone. I do that a lot and I find it has helped me. But it can take quite some time for the brain to heal. And of course, it helps more to be out of the situation once you've got no contact. But the most important thing is to seek a therapist who is a specialist in PTSD. And you can find one through a service that I trust and recommend, which is BetterHelp. Just go to betterhelp.com/narcsurvivor and you can book a session with a PTSD specialist on there. But keep in mind that most people in this world, if not all, they do have some type of brain damage. Even drinking alcohol. I mean, from what I remember, what I've experienced when I used to drink alcohol and having a hangover the next morning, that's pretty much brain damage. Some of it may be temporary, because of course you start to feel better after a few days, but sometimes that can be permanent. So a lot of people are suffering with some impairment to their brains. And of course, I'm sure even myself, even though I haven't drunk alcohol for 6 years, I'm sure that I still have some damage from all of those years ago when I did drink alcohol, because that's what it does. But of course, in low quantities and not so often, it's probably not going to have a noticeable effect. But if you can avoid drinking alcohol, that will help. And especially while you're healing, one of the best things that you can do is to avoid drinking alcohol during that time. Of course, your therapist may prescribe you prescription drugs, and I'm not a doctor myself, but from my research and experience, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm all for prescription drugs, just not long-term, as they can have some side effects, and there may also be some dependency on them. But other than that, in my own experience, I have found prescription drugs to be very helpful, especially if you're dealing with anxiety or insomnia. But yeah, for those of you who joined late, all narcissists will do this at the end of a relationship. They will all turn around and blame you for everything that went wrong. They will make it out like it was all your fault. But yeah, that's it for this message. I'm gonna go and have a shower and get some sleep now. It's quite late here. But I really wanted to get on and do this video. I hope it was helpful for you, and if it was, you can give it a thumbs up down below. Hit subscribe and click all notifications to be notified when I go live in the future. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. You can donate to my PayPal. It is paypal.me/narcsurvivor. If you'd like to book a one-on-one, just go to my website. It is narcsurvivor.co.uk. And follow me on Instagram. It's Narc Survivor YouTube. I'm uploading content every day from my trip last year to Vietnam. You can see all of that on there. Thank you all for your support. And I will speak to you in another live video very soon.